Forest Carbon manages a 23,000-hectare peatland restoration project in South Sumatra, Indonesia. After travel restrictions were tightened during the 2020 pandemic, project monitoring and site visits became a real challenge. External auditors were unable to visit the area, making it difficult to verify project impact under the Verified Carbon Standard and Climate Community and Biodiversity Standard. As the world began to adapt to the global crisis, project partners Forest Carbon and Global Alam Lestari looked to technology to remotely monitor the Sumatra Merang peatland project. Through a collaboration with technology startup Sustainability Tech, the team developed and tested a dashboard tool to monitor the project. The tool combines incoming data from satellite and Internet of Things sensors deployed across the project area. This sensor network is now deployed at over 70 locations across the project, spanning an area over 3.5 times the size of
How much battery does your gadget have? 100%? 50%? 10? Look around. Did you charge your phone? Are you enjoying the day with your AC on without worrying about the heat outside? Comfortable, isn't it? It looks like the energy is powering our lifestyle. But did you know that the energy used to power your life can be bad for our Earth? The fact is, the energy we know and use is starting to damage our Earth. It generates CO2 gas emissions that cause global warming and the greenhouse effect. Even worse, it breaks down our climate and the Earth as we know it. Yes, this is fossil fuel energy. It's not only my problem or your problem, it's ours. Our world is changing, so we should change with it, like transforming from fossil energy to sustainable energy. This is the key to our better future, both for us and generations after us. But where can we get sustainable energy? The answer is close to us, right above us, the sun. Not only the source of solar energy is free, but it's also unlimited. Now, it's time to return the favor for what the Earth has given us. And here is our gift to you. It's Surya. Founded in 2018, we are a startup company in renewable energy as a one-stop solution to assist companies in Indonesia to use solar energy without any investment. At the heart, we are a platform giving value add to roof owners from doing the feasibility study, manage installation, operation and maintenance, and provide rental schemes so the roof owners enjoy electricity saving without any investment. Our mission is to be the leader in technology and solutions for sustainable and clean energy. At Surya, we provide one-stop solution for your solar energy needs. First, we finance your solar energy without investment and give you immediate savings. Then, we design, install, operate, and maintain the solar energy system. At Surya, we offer a rental system called Surya Lease, where you do not put any investment and just pay monthly rental with some electricity cost saving. We give you a peace of mind where we operate and maintain the solar energy system during the rental period. We have installed solar energy system in various companies, such as Kimberly-Clark Softex Indonesia, Plaza Indonesia, Platinum Ceramics, Monde Biscuit, LTC Glodok, and more than 50 other solar energy systems throughout Indonesia. What is our impact on the environment on the national scale? Our services have avoided tens of millions of carbon dioxide or CO2. That's equivalent to 100 of million liters of gasoline, also equivalent to planting hundreds of thousand trees. We also generated tens of millions kilowatt-hour green energy, equivalent to electricity consumed by tens of thousands of houses. We want to make our world better by reducing the use of fossil fuel-based energy and eventually transitioning all to green energy. But our effort will be meaningless without you. Let's be a part of the green movement with us. Surya, revolutionizing energy.
Since 2009, East Ventures has been involved in the development of technology and efficient digital infrastructure in Indonesia. We have witnessed tremendous growth of the digital ecosystem in the last decade. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit Indonesia in 2020, it became a game reset. Yet, the nation's ability to overcome the crisis, combined with high digital adoption, has brought us into a new chapter. 2022 is the next normal, and it is the right moment to move faster to further optimize the digital ecosystem. Indonesia will soon be able to enter its digital golden era. The rate of digital growth in Indonesia is increasing. Hence, the regional digital competitiveness is becoming more equal. This can be shown in the top 10 regions, which range from Sumatra to Sulawesi, DKI Jakarta, West Java, Special Region of Yogyakarta, Banten, East Java, Bali, East Kalimantan, Riau Islands, West Sumatra, and South Sulawesi. Digital equality among regions is due to the development of digital infrastructure in rural areas, the advancement of information and communication technology, and MSME's digital transformation. This can be seen in some provinces such as West Sumatra, the Special Region of Yogyakarta, East Kalimantan, South Sulawesi, and West Papua. This year forward, the digital economy will continue to grow, accelerated by digital technology innovations. Information and communication technology as the foundation will play a key role to catalyze the digital government, digital society, and certainly the digital business. This includes the sectors from e-commerce, logistics and transportation, financial, tourism, education, healthcare, and many other sectors. With all the growth we are experiencing, it is also important to drive the sustainability of the digital ecosystem. And it can be achieved through the implementation of the environmental, social, and governance, or ESG approach. These sectors can only be accelerated when all stakeholders work, not in silo, but hand in hand. And these solid building blocks will pave our way towards Indonesia's digital golden era.
Yeah, slow. Yeah.
Greetings and good morning to all participants, media, and partners. We welcome you to our Earth Day event 2022 with the topic of Invest in Our Planet, how saving our planet also should save your money. In alignment with International Earth Day, this event is held by the initiatives of PT Saratoga Investama Sedaya Tbk, East Ventures, and Surya Daya with the purpose of encouraging everyone, especially industry and business leaders, to reduce carbon footprint as a means of protecting our environment for a greener future. I'm Sarah Mandagi. I'm the country representative of Care Asia in Indonesia, and I'll be the master of ceremony for today's event, and moderating the panel discussion we'll have later. Before we jump to the main topic of this event, allow me to introduce our speakers that have joined us virtually and physically this morning.
Company bisa kan harus bisa kita approach. Angle-nya di sini gimana ya Pak Sahabat kali ini? What does it take for
First and foremost, I would like to greet Mr. Pahala Mansuri, Vice Minister of State-Owned Enterprises. We are connected to him virtually. Thank you for joining us today, sir. Next, present with us here in this room, Mr. Devin Wirawan. He is the Investment Director of PT Saratoga Investama Sedaya Tbk. Good morning, Mr. Devin. I also would like to greet Ms. Afina Sugiarto as Venture Partner of East Ventures. She's joining us today virtually. Good morning, Ms. Afina. We also have our amazing panelists today. Welcome, Mr. Eka Himawan, CEO and founder of Surya Daya Indonesia, Mr. Bijaksana Junero Sano, CEO and founder of Waste for Change, and Mr. Jeffrey Chatelier, CEO of Forest Carbon. Good morning, panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, to start off this event, I would like to invite Mr. Devin Wirawan, Investment Director of PT Saratoga Investama Sedaya Tbk, to give his opening remarks. The stage is yours, Mr. Devin.
Selamat pagi. Good morning, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam damai sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. The Honorable Vice Minister of State-Owned Enterprise, Mr. Pahala Mansuri. Mr. Muhammad Yusriski, Head of Renewable Energy Committee in the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Eka Himawan, CEO and founder of Surya Daya Indonesia. Mr. Bijaksana Junero Sano, CEO and founder of Waste for Change. Mr. Jeffrey Chatelier, CEO and founder of Forest Carbon. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Saratoga, East Ventures, and Surya, I'm delighted to welcome you to our inaugural Celebrating Earth Day webinar. The official theme for Earth Day 2022 is Invest in Our Planet. This is such a cliche, I'm sorry to say. From the business community standpoint, it is so difficult to convince investors to invest in green projects if they do not generate sufficient return. Yes, companies will probably set aside a small amount as a CSR, but this is not meaningful and certainly not sustainable. To be able to make a difference, green projects must be financially feasible. Only when that happens, mass adoption can be achieved. That's why our theme today is how saving our planet should also save your money. We are thankful that the government has made a bold commitment of achieving net zero emissions by 2060. The government has targeted that 23% of its energy production to come from renewable sources by 2025, double from the current level of 12%. The government has also provided incentives and friendly regulations to attract investment into green projects. The keynote speakers, Mr. Pahala Mansuri and Mr. Muhammad Yusriski, will discuss the various initiatives that the government has done to achieve its net zero goal, and how partnership between government and private sectors can accelerate the process. Our panelists from Surya Waste for Change, and Forest Carbon will show how government, businesses, and individuals can play a role in saving the earth sustainably. As an active investment company, Saratoga is committed to support the government's net zero emission commitments. Through our portfolio companies, Adaro and Merdeka, we are investing in the electric vehicle supply chain to create the necessary key components of nickel sulfate and aluminum required for the productions of battery, solar panel, and electric vehicles. We are proud to have invested alongside EVG in Surya, one of the largest rooftop solar energy companies in Indonesia. From early on, our founders, Bapak Edwin Suryajaya and Bapak Sandiaga Uno, understood the importance of having a sustainable business operations, not only to our shareholders, but also to the community and the environment. Saratoga has included ESG parameters such as carbon footprint, community engagement, workforce diversity, among others, into our investment evaluation process. We are joined today by our panelists who are pioneers in their respective industries. All of them contribute greatly to preventing global warming. I must say, these people are visionaries. It may make sense to invest in green projects now, but certainly not 5 years ago. I remember Saratoga was offered the opportunity to invest in Surya 2 years ago, and we declined. The return was simply not there. It was too low. I'm sure at the beginning when these founders started their business, it was most likely a money-losing project. But yet, these brave people did it anyway. It takes vision, hard work, and most importantly, perseverance to get to where they are now. Our first panelist is Mr. Eka Himawan, CEO of Surya Daya Indonesia. Surya is one of the largest rooftop solar energy companies in Indonesia. The company currently operates 68 projects with 24 megawatt peak capacity and has another 65 megawatt peak projects under construction. Through Surya, commercial and industrial companies can reduce CO2 emissions and at the same time lower their electricity expenses. Our second panelist is Mr. Bijaksana Junerosana, CEO of Waste for Change. Waste for Change is a waste management company who aims to efficiently store, manage, and recycle waste products in Indonesia. The company has so far processed close to 9 million kilograms of waste throughout Indonesia. Our third panelist is Mr. Jeffrey Chatelier, CEO of Forest Carbon. Forest Carbon maintains forest concessions, prevents deforestation, and forest fires to directly reduce CO2 emissions in our atmospheres. Currently, the company operates more than 22,000 hectares for a forest restoration project in Sumatra, which offsets close to 1 million tons of CO2 every year. Ladies and gentlemen, with the hand-in-hand support from all relevant stakeholders, we believe in creating a more sustainable and greener future for Indonesia. We need to take actions not because it is the cool thing to do, nor because it is good for our stock price, nor to save our money, even though this is the title of our webinar. We need to do this because it is the right thing to do. On that note, I'm honored to open the Celebrating Earth Day webinar, and may we have fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daven, for the opening speech. We just heard about how PT Saratoga Investama Sedaya has been supporting green businesses and businesses in sustainability. Now, I would like to give the time for Ms. Alvina Sugiarto, venture partner of East Ventures, to deliver her opening speech. To Ms. Devina, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mbak Sarah. Good morning, everyone. The Honorable Bapak Pahala Mansuri, the Vice Minister of Ministry of State-Owned Enterprise in Indonesia, Bapak Muhammad Yusrizky, the Head of Renewable Energy at the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce, or Kadin, Bapak Michael Suryajaya, the President Director of Saratoga Investama Sedaya, Bapak Devin Wirawan, the Investment Director of Saratoga Investama Sedaya, the founders, our panelists who have made great strides toward a greener earth and economy, Pak Eka Himawan, CEO and co-founder of Surya, Mas Bijaksana Junerosano, CEO and co-founder of Waste for Change, Mr. Jeffrey Chatelier, the CEO of Forest Carbon. Also, I would like to greet all the ladies and gentlemen at home and on site. Thank you so much for joining us today in a very special day as we celebrate and strive towards further commitment to our environment. I'll start by going back down a memory lane when Earth Day was initiated in 1970, over 50 years ago. It started during the uncertain times of the Vietnam War. Today, the COVID-19 pandemic over the past 2 years and the war in Ukraine certainly is one of the most uncertain times in our lifetime. The uncertainty has escalated awareness of the deteriorating environment and triggered actions to combat climate change. Earth Day movement today has grown into over 1 billion activists from over 190 countries. Today, we are glad to have 3 companies who are leading the way towards a greener earth and economy, as Pak Devin mentioned. I personally have been impressed by Mas Sano for his passion and actions toward providing responsible and reliable waste management solutions for over a decade, providing not only services, but also education and partnerships towards circular economy. Similarly, Mas Eka at Surya has made great strides to provide businesses with renewable energy source from solar with zero investment. We have also been impressed by the work of Mas Eka and his team to grow the renewable energy capacity in Indonesia, advising commercial and industrial building owners and managers with feasibility studies, installations, operation, maintenance, and essentially let customers enjoy electricity bill savings. Last but not least, Mr. Chatelier from Forest Carbon is a leading developer of premium forest restoration projects in Southeast Asia for the benefit of local communities, biodiversity, and investors. A very, very fast-growing industry globally and in Indonesia. For us at East Ventures, we are elated to become the first signatory of the UN PRI, the Principle of Responsible Investments, United Nations-backed initiative in Indonesia, to lead the way in responsible investments in venture capital and in technology. This reflects and demonstrates our commitment towards sustainable investment and that we are taking into account environmental, social impacts, as well as governance in our investment policies and decision-making. We released our inaugural sustainability report this week, outlining various initiatives that we have done together with our investing companies and ecosystem. You see on the slide here, it's an overview of our sustainability report that was released. Firstly, we have an overview of the sustainable investment strategy and toolkit on how we integrate ESG in our organization across the investment lifecycle, from the deal sourcing up to investment exit. We also share how ESG governance is integrated from the leadership, investment team, legal, and value creation team in our organization. We believe that technology and digitalization are crucial and serve as a solid foundation for accelerating progress to a more inclusive society, and look at 3 outcomes achieved through our investments. Financial inclusion is the first one, where we have portfolios ranging from payment, lending, neobanking, investment platforms, insurtech, open banking, and many more. We have better health and education, where our portfolios such as Ruang Guru, Nusantix, and Nala Genetics are providing innovative solutions and access. On the sustainable and livable environment, we see what Surya and Waste for Change here are aiming to achieve. Together with our ecosystem, we have mapped that our investing companies are contributing to 16 out of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. On the diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have 25% of our active portfolio are founded or co-founded by women, while at our firm, we have 52% of our workforce are female and 33% or 1 in 3 of the investing partners in Southeast Asia being female. We believe there is still significant progress we need to make, and hence we started an initiative called Women with Impact to provide perspectives and empower more women to reach senior leadership roles and become strong female founders. We also included Indonesia Pasti Bisa initiative during the pandemic, whereby we think speed and agility are very important to pull together the resources and our ecosystem and partners to respond to the health crisis. The report also contains an overview of our East Ventures Digital Competitiveness Index, a third-year initiative where we map the competitiveness of different regions in Indonesia so that there are more attention given to the second, third, and fourth-tier cities with regards to digital access and infrastructure. We hope that this will inspire and empower our ecosystem, the broader communities and stakeholders toward a more sustainable and inclusive future. In more than a decade as an investor, we have worked and witnessed hundreds of entrepreneurs who have changed the direction of Indonesia economy with innovative technology solutions to improve access and affordability to achieve a stronger and more prosperous economy. Our portfolio companies have recorded over 86 billion of annualized gross merchandise value and over 6.7 billion in follow-on funding, primarily in Indonesia. While ESG policies and integration will take time to progress, we can continue to improve our commitment to achieving better positive impacts. Indonesia, as the G20 presidency with the theme Recover Together, Recover Stronger, highlights the importance of sustainability in the 3 main topics: global health architecture reform, the digital economy transformation, and energy transition. In addressing these challenges, we believe all stakeholders from investors, governments, companies, organizations, and consumers need to join hands to develop and promote ESG practices and solutions. Today, we encourage you to take concrete steps to take care of our planet so that we can embrace and implement ESG principles in the business operations, plans, and investments. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your opening remarks. It is very exciting to see more and more tech ecosystems, business leaders, and communities work hand in hand for a greener earth. Moving on to our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Pahala Mansuri, Vice Minister of State-Owned Enterprises. We would like to know what are the supports that the government is providing or facilitating in order to accelerate green investments in Indonesia. So to Pak Pahala Mansuri, the stage is yours, Pak.
Thank you, AZ Venture, for inviting me to to become one of the keynote speaker in today's webinar about the Earth Day, with the topic of invest in our planet, how saving our planet should also save your money. I think I would like to start by thanking AZ Venture, Pak Michael, and all of the others from AZ Ventures, Ibu Afina just now. I think I would like to start discussing how investing in the emissions reduction program is actually very, very important. I think it is actually widely known that global warming is actually a very high profile and very high stake issues. But I think the major milestone that we have actually witnessed is the adoption of the Paris Agreement in 2015, whereby during the COP21 in Paris, about close to 200 countries are committing to be able to limit the global warming to be below 2 degrees Celsius. And I think it is the impact of being able to limit it at 1.5 Celsius is actually very significant, as you see that if that actually happens, about 210 million people are actually going to be exposed to severe drought. So during the speech just now, I think Pak Devin mentioned about that investing in the future of the planet is not only good for the money, but I think it is actually very, very essential because it really defines what would be the quality of life of the globe in the future. Not only that, I think about 14% of the world population will be exposed to severe heat waves, coastal flooding, about 290 million homes. And I think something that is actually very, very relevant today, because we are seeing that food crisis is probably something that we need to be very, very cautious about. We've seen that the cause of the global warming will also cause some reduction in crop nutrient value, that's therefore creating some potential health risk to more than 600 million population. And I think since the agreement in Paris, we've seen that a lot of countries have committed to be able to achieve the net zero mission. About 31 countries have actually committed to be able to achieve that by the year of 2050. And more than 90 countries are now committing to be able to achieve net zero emission. Some are actually committing to achieving that by the year of 2060, just like Indonesia. And I think for Indonesia in particular, we see that as part of the national defined commitment, we are actually committing to be able to reduce about 29% of the greenhouse gas emission by the year of 2030, including the impact of the LULUCF or the land use, and about 41% reduction if we are to be able to get international support. And I think this is something that is already committed, and Indonesia, whether it is actually the energy, waste, as well as agricultural sectors, the sectors that is actually going to be very, very highly impacted are going to be the energy sector, as you see, whereby within the energy sector, the target of reduction is about 11% from the total BAU by the year of 2030. And therefore, I think this is actually an alarm for us, a call for action for us, whether you are actually in the government, in the private sector, or in the SOE sector like myself. How are we going to be able to help Indonesia to achieve and implement and make sure that Indonesia will be able to achieve the NDC targets by building commitment all across the sector, all across the different stakeholders? And how are we going to be able to get everyone to understand what will be the NDC for each of the particular sector? And how are we going to be able to continue to create the environment, having the capacity for us to continue to drive that, because this is actually going to be a very massive, significant changes, not only within the energy sector, but also in the other sector. In particular is actually the agricultural and the forest and other sectors that is actually heavily using land as the main resources. And Indonesia already has defined a regulation. I think by the end of 2021, there was a Perpres, Peraturan Presiden number 98, which is actually going to be the major regulation that puts together the framework about how carbon economic value is actually going to be implemented for us to be able to achieve the national defined commitment that was actually presented just now, and the presidential decree within the next couple of months is expected to be translated into 48 derivative rules. Whether, as I said, it is actually going to be within the environment and forestry regulation, within the energy sector, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources regulation on the procedures on implementing this carbon economic value. Particularly, I think the first sector that is actually going to be heavily affected is within the electricity, particularly within the power plant sector. And I think later on, the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Internal Affairs will actually also regulate about the detailed calculation, collection, payment and deposit related with how are we going to be able to report and calculate the carbon tax and the carbon tax reduction mechanism, including what we know already about the carbon offset markets, because Indonesia has already broadly defined that if a company or if an institution is not going to be able to achieve what is actually being committed in terms of the reduction emission target, they will need to actually buy the carbon offset credit to be able to achieve the target. And if they have not actually achieved the target after they buy the carbon offset credit, then they will need to pay a carbon tax. Within the Ministry of SOE, what we are actually doing is trying to now, as what I have actually developed just now, what I've actually explained just now, how are we going to start to encourage all of the SOE, particularly those that are heavily related with this regulation. We see that there are 8 companies or 8 SOEs that are actually going to be heavily affected, including Pertamina in oil and gas, PLN in electricity, Pupuk Indonesia in fertilizers, Mine ID in the mining sector, PTPN in the plantation sector, Perhutani in the forestry sector, and Cement Indonesia within the cement sector. And then the last company or the last holding that we think is going to be heavily affected, meaning that they are going to play an important role, which I will actually explain to you later on when we talk about the carbon offset market, is BKI, or Biro Klasifikasi, which is actually our holding in the survey sector. And we are actually looking at it from the point of view that each one of the SOEs that we mentioned just now, they will need to actually be able to come up with how are they going to be developing the decarbonization agenda all the way from now until the year of 2030. And I think in the spirit of the topic of today of how are we going to be able to correlate the effort to save the planet with making more profitable business, we see that we need to approach it not only how are we going to be able to reduce the end-to-end emission by, for example, trying to develop the co-firing of biomasses within the power plants of PLN, or how are we going to be able to convert from diesel or from gas to new and renewable power plants, or to be able to actually retire the existing coal-fired power plant, or how are we going to be able to optimize the water management within the activities of our SOE. But we also are looking at this as an opportunity for us to invest for the future and make money from these investments. And we are actually looking at it, how are we going to be able to build adjacent business from the existing business that they have right now, so that they will actually have specific initiatives within each of the SOEs to build adjacent businesses that is actually correlated with the needs to reduce the emission, whether it is actually scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3 that they are actually emitting. So in the case of Pertamina, for example, the kind of adjacent business that they will need to do is developing the geothermal. Or with them, we also are requiring them to actually develop the bio-blending gas oil, whether it is actually POME-based or whether it is actually pharma-based. And they will need to obviously work with other SOEs. And that is why what we are actually looking at, going to drive the different adjacent businesses. They will not actually look at it from the existing BUMN as a silo, but they will need to actually synergize and work with the other SOEs. So in the case of bio-blending gas oil, Pertamina, for example, will need to actually work with PTPN, our plantation group, so that they can actually develop what is actually required to develop the CNG, which is actually going to be coming from the POME or from the other products of PTPN, and developing HVO Pertamina to produce, for example, something like used cooking oil-based HVO products. Or in the case of MindID, Pertamina, and PLN, and Antam, then they will together develop an integrated EV battery development, which includes also the downstream part of that, not only by producing the battery only, but how are we going to be able to provide the infrastructure that will be required by the motorcycles or the cars to be able to actually charge their battery or swap their batteries. Or in the case of PLN, how are they going to actually develop a program to convert from LPG to electric stove? And I think the third one that we are actually encourage them is really how are they going to be able to explore the step out opportunities that probably are not related with their existing business, but actually are, go and beyond their existing businesses that they have. So again, in the case of PTPN, they will need to actually develop, because they used to just produce Oloin or CPO coming from the production of palm that they have, but they will need to actually go further than that to produce biogases and CH4 from their POME to help Pertamina to produce the HVO, for example. And these are something that we require them to actually chart for the next 10 years. And I think we are now also to push forward the SOEs going forward. We see that there are really 5 ecosystem initiatives that will be pushed forward by the Ministry of SOE in supporting decarbonization effort by the government of Indonesia. One, as I mentioned just now, how the SOEs together, the 7 that I actually mentioned just now, plus BKI, can play a role in terms of developing and structuring the carbon market ecosystems, not only between SOEs, but if there are private sectors that is actually keen in developing the carbon offset market in Indonesia, whether it is actually voluntary or compliance-based carbon offset market, obviously this is actually something that will be beneficial from everybody. And I think the second initiative that we will be pushing is how are we going to be able to develop a much more sustainable industrial clusters, implementing new technologies such as CCUS, hydrogen within the cluster of the energy sectors, or utilizing the existing facility by Pupuk Indonesia, for example, to develop the green hydrogen or green ammonia that we just alluded just now, to become part of the co-firing that will be required by the various gas-fired power plant in the industrial clusters. The third initiative that we are actually pushing is how are we going to maximize the country's natural-based solution. I think there are certain examples already in Indonesia. Indonesia is very rich in terms of natural-based solution, whether it is actually reforestation, peatland protection, and I think in combination with the carbon offset market, developing the country's nature-based solution will be a very powerful initiative for the future. The fourth is how are we going to together within the 4 consortium that actually makes IBC right now to scale up the battery production as well as developing the EV ecosystem itself. So we are looking at these two cluster of battery as well as EV ecosystem is the future. This is actually the opportunity for Indonesia to become a significant contributor to the global production of the value chain of EV, because Indonesia is very rich not only in nickel, but I think we see that there are opportunities for us also to become a major manufacturer, maybe start with the 2-wheelers EV and then later on with the 4-wheelers EV. And how are we going to be able to increase the capacity of the non-renewable energy in Indonesia, whether it is actually geothermal, solar PV, biomass, green hydrogen, green ammonia. Indonesia has the unique opportunity to become one of the leaders within these new and renewable energy sources. So we hope that these 5 initiatives are going to be the major initiatives that we are going to go forward. And we, of course, are looking forward to have a collaboration between our SOEs with the private sectors. We would like to welcome collaboration with the startups. We know that there are already some startups, for example, that has initiated the NBS or the nature-based solution implementation. We would like to be able to actually continue working with them, leveraging on the perhutani areas that they are actually managing, as well as the PTPN areas. We would like to work with other private institutions or startups, for example. For example, a couple of weeks ago, IBC working with Pertamina and Gojek, for example, to scale up EV adoption in Indonesia. So going forward, we really want to hear how SOE going to be able to collaborate with the private sectors and all of the startups to develop this new industry of renewable related clusters. Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation, Mr. Pahala Mansuri, Vice Minister of State-Owned Enterprises. Allow me to give a little recap to our audience. There is much support from the government. Indonesia government has made bold commitments and efforts in supporting decarbonization, aiming to reach net zero by 2050. Next, I would like to move on to Mr. Muhammad Yusrizki, Head of Renewable Energy Committee in Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or KADIN, who is unfortunately not able to join us today. But worry not, we have received his statements about the role of KADIN in accelerating renewable energy implementation in Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, let's watch the message.
Good morning to our distinguished keynote speaker, Mr. Pahala Mansuri, Vice Minister of State-Owned Enterprises. and to speaker panel for today, Mr. Bijaksana Junior Rosano, CEO and founder of Waste for Change, Mr. Eka Himawan, Managing Director of Surya Daya, and Mr. Jeffrey Chatelier, CEO of Forest Carbon. And good morning also to all the participants attending this Earth Day webinar, both for those attending physically and remotely. My gratitude to PT Saratoga Invest Pharma Sedaya Tbk, its ventures, and Surya Daya that have invited Indonesian Chambers of Commerce, Kadin, to take part in this event. This year's Earth Day coincided with several series of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, 6 assessment reports, AR6. The first series was issued on August 2021, the second on February 2022, and the latest report from Third Working Group was issued currently on April 4, 2022. The report once again reminding us that the impact from climate change are felt across the globe. Most of us here are probably fortunate to not feeling the direct and harsh impact of climate change. Seawater, at least not erodes our front yard. Our food and water still come from reliable sources, and our works still provide us with meaningful compensation. But there are people, communities, who must deal with the harsh impact of climate change. IPCC Working Group second report on climate change, impact, adaptation, and vulnerability laid bare the hardship and the potential apocalypse on climate change. Only there are some substantial damages and increasingly irreversible losses in terrestrial, freshwater, and coastal and open ocean marine ecosystem. In other words, all of the landscapes humankind are living in. Furthermore, it is likely that the proportion of all terrestrial and freshwater species at very high risk extinction will reach 9% to maximum 14% at 1.5 degrees Celsius. This number rises to 10% to 18% at 2 degrees and 12 to 29% at 3 degrees Celsius. We are looking at approximately 3.3 to 3.6 billion people live in a context that are highly vulnerable to climate change. There is almost half of total Earth population today. Looking at that context, are we sure we ourselves are not part of that 3.3 to 3.6 billion people living with vulnerability? Just because we are not dealing with and facing with apparent vulnerabilities right now, doesn't mean we are not at risk. Our food will still come from reliable sources, but we will be at risk at certain point where the environment can no longer sustain the over-farming, over-fertilizing, and overfishing. Many of our comforts that we are taking for granted currently might very well be under threat now, if not sometimes in the future. Dear speaker and participants, this is the state of our world currently. These are the situations that we are dealing with. Not 50 years from now, not 5 years from now, not tomorrow, but currently, on this very second as we speak. The remaining question right now is not whether we are going into an apocalypse. We're sure we are going into one. But what are our efforts to minimize climate change impact and provide the next generation a better chance to improve the state of the world we are living in? Energy transition is one effort we can do to stop the world from declining worse from climate change impact. This is one area where myself, along with my organization, both through Kadin and through my business entities, as well as organizations like Saratoga Investama, East Ventures, and Suryadaya, can contribute. Energy transition does not exist in vacuum as an effort to mitigate climate change. As you go through this webinar today, you will hear the importance of waste management as well as nature-based solution as tools that we can leverage to lessen the impact from the climate change. And Indonesia is not alone in this effort. If we are talking about energy transition, specifically on renewable energy, I can consider Indonesia to be one of more fortunate countries. The technologies are there to be had. All the research, field tests, and concepts are already being done successfully elsewhere in the world. And we are here now to leverage the benefit of those who have worked on renewable energy before us. For sure, the landscape is still wide, and there's still uncharted technology to be deployed in the future. But what we have right now, be the form of solar power, wind power, and all the surrounding technologies and the business models are there. We just need to learn from it, have the drive and determination to learn from the mistakes others have made and leapfrog our development path. Renewable energy is the key to energy transition. If we take a step back through time, we will see that the ecosystem, the surrounding environment, be it regulatory, fiscal, financing, or business model environment, are developed around renewable energy and their unique characteristics. Some might say the solar and wind power are intermittent, that there will be days when the sun does not shine and the wind do not blow. Those characteristics are as sure as the sun rises from the east and sets on the west. But do we stop because of that? Do researchers, all the smartest brain in the world, stop developing solar and wind because of that? No. All the smartest brain in the world are researching despite those characteristics. Because of those characteristics, we now have the smart grid technology. The solution and infrastructure once primarily belong to electronics and information technology are being leveraged into power sectors. And the power sectors benefit from that. And ultimately, all of us as the consumers of power sectors. Energy transition is not only the domain of PLN as the Indonesia's most dominant power company, but it is also our domain as customers and business communities. Each of us must look very hard on our current energy usage and ask what we can do to contribute to lessen our emission footprint. For business communities, making choices to lower our emission, either using captive renewable energy generation or implementing energy efficiency measures, are sensible and important business decisions. In the right context, the right application, and the right mindset, reducing our emission footprint might also mean reducing our ongoing expenses, which improve the business profitability. And committing to reduce our emission footprint does not only come from our use of energy. There are many aspects in our business life cycle and value chain that can benefit from our commitment in emission reduction. And as with the energy, most of those choices can be a very good choices from business perspective. We must have a mindset that emission reduction is not cost, but an ongoing investment. Kadin endorsed emission reduction effort from private sectors, acknowledging that private sectors has the same responsibility with our government in achieving Indonesian net zero emission target by 2060. Once again, I thank the organizer and wish you all a very good time throughout the webinar. Thank you very much.
Mr. Muhammad Yusrizki, Head of Renewable Energy Committee in Indonesian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We have heard from him that he hopes more and more business leaders, initiatives, and communities join hand in hand, creating concrete solutions to save our planet. And right now, today, we will be switching to Bahasa Indonesia. But yeah, of course, we can always adjust later. And yeah, saat ini kita akan masuk kepada acara panel diskusi, masih pada tema How Saving Our Planet Should Also Save Your Money. Bersama saya hari ini sudah hadir Bapak Eka Himawan, founder dari Surya. Surya merupakan startup energi terbarukan yang mempelopori metode tanpa investasi dalam menawarkan one-stop solution untuk instalasi PLTS atap bagi bangunan industri dan komersial. Kemudian telah hadir juga Mas Wijaksana Junerosano. Ini panggilannya Mas Wijak ya? Sano, sorry. Ya, Mas Sano. Oke. Mas Sano, CEO and founder dari Waste for Change ya Mas ya. Waste for Change merupakan perusahaan yang menyediakan solusi pengelolaan sampah yang bertanggung jawab dengan berlandaskan kolaborasi dan teknologi untuk menuju penerapan circular economy. And last but not least, welcome Mr. Jarvis Chatelier, the CEO of Forest Carbon. Forest Carbon restores degraded wetland forests. The company is a premium forest restoration project developer in Southeast Asia that delivers benefits for local communities, biodiversity, and investors through a proven business model. And I think before we go to the panel discussion, we will watch some videos from Waste for Change and Forest Carbon. So for the team, please play the video.
Tahukah kemana sampah Anda berakhir? Apakah ketika sampah ini hilang dari pandangan Anda, artinya sampah tersebut juga hilang dari bumi ini? Nyatanya, sampah sisa konsumsi Anda kebanyakan hanya berpindah tempat. Menyebabkan permasalahan bagi orang lain dan lingkungan. Mulai dari polusi tanah akibat tertimbunnya material sampah, polusi udara melalui gas rumah kaca yang tercipta, hingga polusi air akibat cairan sampah yang tidak terkelola dan akhirnya menciptakan penyakit. Belum lagi dengan ketidakpedulian kita terhadap sampah. Kita menciptakan sebuah ekosistem yang tidak berpihak pada orang-orang yang bekerja di dalamnya. Pengangkut sampah yang mendorong gerobak berbau sampah, hingga pemulung yang hidup mencari nafkah di tengah gunungan sampah kita. Hal inilah yang membuat Muhammad Wijaksana Junerosano, seorang lulusan dari Fakultas Teknik Sipil dan Lingkungan ITB, bercita-cita memberikan solusi untuk pengelolaan sampah yang lebih baik di Indonesia. Dengan pengalaman entrepreneurship dan ilmu yang ia dapatkan di FTSL ITB, ia pun mendirikan Waste for Change di tahun 2014, sebuah perusahaan pengelolaan sampah yang memberikan solusi yang lebih bertanggung jawab. Ketika yang lain berfokus pada solusi di hilir, Waste for Change hadir untuk menciptakan perubahan ekosistem persampahan di hulu. Hal ini demi mengurangi jumlah sampah di lingkungan, memperpanjang umur material, dan menciptakan lebih banyak pekerjaan di bidang persampahan yang lebih baik. Waste for Change memiliki visi untuk menjadi pemimpin dalam pengelolaan sampah yang bertanggung jawab. Demi mewujudkan visi ini, Waste for Change hadir dengan solusi pengelolaan sampah dari hulu ke hilir berupa konsult, campaign, collect, dan create. Dengan 4C ini, Waste for Change datang untuk memperkaya pengetahuan terkait isu sampah di Indonesia melalui riset, rekomendasi, edukasi, serta implementasi pengelolaan sampah bertanggung jawab mulai dari pengangkutan terpilah hingga solusi pengolahan sampah berdasarkan materialnya.
Forest Carbon manages a 23,000-hectare peatland restoration project in South Sumatra, Indonesia. After travel restrictions were tightened during the 2020 pandemic, project monitoring and site visits became a real challenge. External auditors were unable to visit the area, making it difficult to verify project impact under the Verified Carbon Standard and Climate Community and Biodiversity Standard. As the world began to adapt to the global crisis, project partners Forest Carbon and Global Alam Lestari looked to technology to remotely monitor the Sumatra Merang peatland project. Through a collaboration with technology startup Sustainability Tech, the team developed and tested a dashboard tool to monitor the project. The tool combines incoming data from satellite and Internet of Things sensors deployed across the project area. This sensor network is now deployed at over 70 locations across the project, spanning an area over 3.5 times the size of Manhattan. The dashboard sends daily updates to management teams, external verifiers, and clients to track forest regeneration across the ecosystem in real time. The sensors, designed in-house by Sustainability Tech, verify that these critical wetland areas are retaining more water from rehabilitation efforts. Infrared smoke detection cameras also support rapid response if any fires occur. The dashboard also provides tree cover loss analysis, providing data layers to demonstrate the impact of the project. This layer shows us that before conservation activities began in 2016, the area suffered major deforestation from fire events and timber extraction. The dashboard also supports fire risk assessment by providing fire history data and hotspot notifications. Prior to the Sumatra Merang peatland project, there were consistent fires as seen in the snapshot from 2009 to 2015. Now, in the period from 2016 to the present, the dashboard shows that fire occurrence has reduced significantly within the borders of the project. Fires have also decreased in surrounding forest areas as the project supports community members with fire brigades, monitoring, and training. Canals were excavated to harvest timber before the project, draining the water from the peatland area. This drainage causes the peatland to dry out and releases greenhouse gases. We can see the canal network that drained the area in this layer, representing extensive degradation before the project. In 2018, The Sumatra Merang Peatland project began a major dam construction effort to bring water back to these degraded wetland areas, constructing over 188 peatland compaction dams. The sensors provide critical data on the hydrological interventions by monitoring the change in water table levels. Each sensor uses an ultrasound device connected to a long-range communications platform that transmits data to the project dashboard. The results from project interventions can be seen from space, which show the forest is regenerating each year. Regeneration is important for the communities that rely on the project area and for the many species that inhabit the landscape. Staff can track biodiversity trends using camera traps in the forest areas across the site. Each day, these cameras capture the unique endangered species in the project, including the Sumatran tiger. Forest Carbon's collaboration with Sustainability Tech improves decision-making for project managers. This low-cost technology package also provides a robust data set for external verifiers. Using this tool, Forest Carbon achieved a fully remote audit of the Sumatra Merang Peatland project in 2020. Taken to scale, this dashboard solution can be used by forest restoration and conservation projects around the world. By solving a remote monitoring challenge, Forest Carbon and Sustainability Tech have ultimately established a way to increase transparency and build trust in project outcomes.
Oke, kita baru saja menyaksikan video dari Waste for Change dan Forest Carbon tadi. Menarik sekali kita melihat bagaimana sekarang teknologi startup bisa membantu benar-benar punya konkret nyata gitu ya, solusi yang inovatif untuk kedepannya membuat bumi kita menjadi lebih aman, lebih baik tentunya ke depannya. Sebelum kita dengarkan insight dari ketiga gentleman ini, saya perempuan sendiri di sini, mungkin saya mau mengencourage para audiens yang hadir secara online di webinar kita hari ini. Apabila Anda memiliki pertanyaan, silahkan tuliskan pertanyaan Anda di kolom chat box di Zoom. Dan kemudian nanti ketika panel diskusi, kita bisa membacakan 3 pertanyaan dari para audiens. Oke. Hadirin sekalian, tanpa menunggu lama lagi, mari kita dengarkan insight dari Bapak Eka Himawan mengenai bagaimana perusahaan dapat menerapkan energi hijau untuk menggerakkan aktivitas bisnis mereka tanpa investasi. Silakan Pak Eka.
Terima kasih para hadirin. Nama saya Eka dan mungkin saya mau sedikit penjelasan kali ya tentang Surya dan juga mungkin sedikit background saya gitu. Mungkin pertama-tama yang banyak nanya mungkin kenapa bisa nyasar gitu kan ke bisnis solar panel ini. Sebenarnya kalau dilihatin dari background saya sebenarnya nggak nyasar-nyasar banget karena memang basisnya saya electrical engineering gitu kan. Dan waktu saya lulus di 2007 itulah sebenarnya tempat saya bertemu dengan co-founder saya. Beliau namanya Edwin. Dia actually CTO-nya kita, co-founder CTO-nya kita. Dan kebetulan dia itu PhD di bidang solar. Jadi waktu saya pertama kali gitu graduate electrical engineering, kerjaan saya kebetulan di finance gitu kan. Dan saya banyak invest di renewable energy actually projects. 2007 itu minyak lagi menuju ke $150, sama seperti sekarang. Dan waktu itu itulah the first wave of solar panel dan renewable energy was actually going up lah. Dan kebetulan karena itu background saya yang electrical engineering, saya di task untuk melihat investasi di solar energy ini juga dengan wind, geothermal, hydro dan kawan-kawan. Dan saya benar-benar tergerak dengan solar energy ini karena memang mungkin saya pikir balik, saya waktu itu di Amerika by the way, dan saya pikir, oh Amerika matahari nggak mungkin sekencang Indonesia gitu kan ya. Jadi itu salah satu yang penggerak utama yang kayak pikir-pikir matahari, masa sih Amerika bisa lebih hebat daripada Indonesia gitu kan ya. Dan of course knowing that in general how the work works gitu kan ya. Kalau dilihatin itu memang matahari itu sumber energi dari kita semua, dari akar-akarnya gitu kan ya. Kalau dilihatin kita tanpa matahari nggak mungkin ada kehidupan, nggak ada kehidupan nggak mungkin ada pohon, nggak ada pohon nggak mungkin ada batu bara gitu kan sebenarnya. Jadi dilihatin ini memang benar-benar sumber energi yang utama gitu. Kenapa kita langsung dari source-nya, kenapa kita harus nunggu berjuta-juta tahun untuk pakai itu dan akhirnya bakar kembali malah merusak environment kita gitu kan. Dan oleh karena itulah saya tergerak untuk balik ke Indonesia, dan memang saya nggak langsung gitu berkecimpung di bidang solar energy. Saya sempat kerja dulu di bidang finance, dan juga sempat actually bikin startup sendiri bidang e-commerce. Unfortunately waktu itu e-commerce saya malah agak merusak planet karena kita mencecerkan banyak diapers gitu di dunia. Saya dulu founder dari Orami, yaitu baby product e-commerce. Mungkin part of the reason juga pengen try to atone myself kali gitu ya. So kira-kira itu seperti itulah background saya dan kenapa solar gitu kan. Nah mungkin saya sedikit menjelaskan gitu bahwa current situation di Indonesia itu di dunia itu memang carbon emission itu memang mulai memprihatinkan, dan kalau dilihatin sebenarnya Indonesia itu sebenarnya salah satu yang paling memprihatinkan, karena kalau dilihatin dari pemakaian listriknya kita, dan pemakaian listrik itu mungkin bisa dibilang cukup besar ya dari segi carbon emission seluruh negara gitu. Building and industry alone aja mungkin account for about 30%, dan belum lagi yang lain-lainnya gitu kan. Dan kalau dilihatin dari carbon emission mereka, besarnya sebenarnya besarnya salah satunya dari tenaga listrik. Nah kebetulan Indonesia itu karena cukup banyak listrik kita yang dari fossil fuel dibanding ke negara-negara lain gitu ya, sekitar kita gitu kan, yang dari Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, carbon dioxide emission kita itu salah satu yang paling tinggi di region ini gitu ya, dengan 0,951 kilogram of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour, atau sama dengan ton per megawatt hour. Sedangkan globally itu average-nya sekitar 0,56. Jadi memang kita punya jauh lebih tinggi, dan kelihatannya faktor emisi kita itu tidak akan turun terlalu drastis gitu kalau tanpa melakukan something. Makanya ini that is what I'm trying to change. Kita pengen menggerakkan industri ini biar kita menghijaukan menghijaukan pemakaian listrik kita yang sudah kita pakai di Indonesia. Sebenarnya kalau mau ngomongin hijau banget sih, paling gampangnya kita jauh ke zaman batu ya. Kita semuanya pakai kuda lagi, pakai kereta. Cuman kita juga tetap recognize bahwa dengan keinginan kita menghijaukan ini, tetap kita pengen maintain our standard of living, kita pengen maintain certain progress gitu kan ya. This is why I think solar, kembali lagi saya sangat-sangat tergerak dengan solar in general. Indonesia itu potensi untuk renewable energy sebenarnya sangat-sangat besar. Cuman memang selama ini agak terhambat. Saya agak prihatin sama Indonesia sendiri specifically, karena kita udah pernah ada kejadian nih gitu kan, di mana kita merasa kita punya banyak sekali minyak, udah deh kita pakai aja, kita punya minyak, tiba-tiba alhasil dari jadi anggota OPEC kita jadi anggota importer gitu kan. Ini sama halnya yang akan terjadi di fossil fuel gitu kan. Kita fossil fuel ini kalau dilihatin kita punya reserve itu nomor 7 atau nomor 8 di dunia gitu ya. Tapi kita punya ekspor itu bisa nomor 3 di dunia. Apa artinya gitu? Artinya itu kita exporting way more than what we have, dan ini history akan repeating itself gitu. Kenapa kita harus keep on doing this gitu? Kenapa nggak kita coba mencari energi yang lebih sustainable, not only from the environmental perspective, tapi also from a perspective of the economic Indonesia gitu ya. Dan kalau dilihatin gitu, potensi renewable energy kita sebenarnya di mana aja sih ya. Banyak yang bilang kan hydro atau geothermal, memang benar itu besar, dan itu potensialnya ada 75 gigawatt, dan geothermal 30 gigawatt. Bayu itu juga ya mungkin kalau orang Indonesia bilang angin-anginan, tapi tetap aja ada 60 gigawatt potensialnya gitu ya. Tapi solar energy itu jauh di atas yang lainnya, karena solar energy itu tidak mengenal tempat. seperti tadi Pak Yusiski bilang gitu kan ya, itu matahari itu seyakin rising from the east and falling from the west gitu kan. Jadi memang ini salah satu yang penting lah tentang solar energy. Gitu. Dan banyak yang bilang, oh solar energy di Indonesia kan banyak awan gitu ya. Kenapa harus solar energy di Indonesia, kan banyak awan? Ya oke, mungkin kalau soal banyak awan, kita jadi liatin dari segi yang sebelah kiri nih gitu ya. Jumlah matahari yang Indonesia punya. Kita tergolong di atas rata-rata, cuman memang belum sebesar yang misalnya Israel, Saudi Arabia atau Iran atau Emirates. Cuman kita ada satu berkat dari Tuhan yang tidak bisa kita pungkiri, kita tuh di equator. Sun variance kita, jadi berapa stabil sih matahari yang kita dapat, itu jauh lebih besar dibanding negara-negara yang 4 musim. Bayangkan saja kalau misalnya mereka bergantung sama matahari, tiba-tiba winter nyampe, matahari cuma 5 jam atau 6 jam. Kalau di Indonesia kan mau seharian penuh selalu setahun penuh selalu 12 jam gitu. Itu nggak pernah, paling ya antara hujan atau nggak hujan aja gitu ya. Jadi itu salah satu yang berkat yang harus kita gitu ya. Tapi kalau saya lihatin penetrasinya solar di Indonesia itu sangat-sangat memprihatinkan. Ini data di 2018. Data 2019-2020 mungkin sekitar 150 megawatt Indonesia punya. Dibandingkan dengan makanya kita yang 60 gigawatt itu benar-benar nggak ada apa-apanya. Tapi kalau saya dilihatin di negara-negara lain, dan ini ini data yang cukup lama ya, Vietnam itu dari 2 gigawatt di 2018 itu sekarang 15 gigawatt. Jadi jauh banget sebenarnya pemakaian solar di negara-negara lain. Thailand pun juga udah jauh melejit, sekitar 5 gigawatt. Tapi kok kita Indonesia yang populasi jauh lebih besar daripada Thailand dibanding Vietnam, pemakaian listrik kita jauh lebih besar juga gitu kan ya. Ini chartnya itu kalau saya dilihatin yang sebelah kiri itu pemakaian listriknya kita, itu salah satu yang paling besar di Southeast Asia. So gimana caranya nih kalau perusahaan-perusahaan bisa take action untuk reduce carbon emission? Pertama-tama kita juga mengerti bahwa perusahaan-perusahaan itu kalau misalnya investasi di solar itu kan investasi yang jangka panjang. Memang it's a good investment. Tapi itulah kenapa kita come up with our solution gitu. And this is what we've been working together with our investors, East Ventures dan Saratoga. Di sini ada juga Schneider Electric, Climb Capital, New Energy Nexus, dan juga ada Samsung di Thailand gitu ya. Kita work together with many investors untuk kita coba kasih solusi di mana investor-investor inilah yang keluarin biaya, dan customer-customer ini, pabrik-pabrik ini nggak usah keluar biaya, dapat saving. Itu yang produk utama kita. Jadi mungkin untuk di highlight cepatnya gitu ya, Surya itu intinya kita end-to-end solution untuk menghadirkan solar dan mempercepat adopsi solar, karena memang kita melihat ini sebagai suatu petisi ya. The more perusahaan-perusahaan yang actually pakai renewable energy, the more this actually sends the message to the government bahwa I think it's time to use a cleaner source of energy gitu. Tapi again kita understand bahwa mungkin nggak semua perusahaan pengen mengeluarkan kocek untuk ini, makanya kita come with the solution of air panel investment. So kita di-establish di 2018, we focus on what we call the air panel investment. Kok kelihatannya bagus banget gitu kan ya, kadang nggak usah invest apa-apa, tiba-tiba dapat saving, ya memang benar. Cuman of course, simply speaking-nya, solar panel investment itu sudah cukup murah, di mana untuk kita invest, itu kita akan balik modal dalam let's say 7-8 tahun. Kalau misalnya kita bisa sewakan ini aset selama 25 tahun, I think it's a win-win solution. From our perspective, we are as a business, we have to make a return for the investment, for the investors. Tapi at the same time from the customer perspective, dapat dari mana lagi utang 25 tahun gitu kan. Di Indonesia KPR aja paling pol 15 tahun gitu kan. Nah, ini yang produk utamanya kita, kenapa kita gimana caranya kita bisa stretch ini, istilahnya kita channeling this lower source of capital atau ya more I would say concessional source of capital lah terhadap bisnis-bisnis yang mungkin nature-nya lebih tradisional gitu. Jadi kalau dilihatin dari customer-customer kita seperti DHL, Cemco itu dari Honda, kemudian Softex, ada Platinum Keramik, ada East West Seat, itu LPC Glodok gitu ya misalnya, atau Hotel Fabrika, ada juga ada bahasa Indonesia dan kalau Tokopedia, dan juga nggak lupa juga ada MJ Bosco itu ya, portfolio company Saratoga. Mereka semua itu tidak usah investasi, dan mereka semua itu kan bisnisnya tradisional gitu. Kalau mereka dapat hutang, pasti hutangnya tradisional. Makanya kita masuk sana untuk memberikan mereka. Sekarang kita udah ada 57 lokasi in operation, another 43 location in under construction, so total about 100, tersebar di seluruh penjuru Indonesia. Mungkin ini sedikit gambar-gambar gitu, bayangan solar panel tampangnya seperti apa sih gitu kan ya. Ini sebagian customer kita, not all karena nggak bisa semua. Ada di Hotel Santika di Palembang itu sekitar 300 kilowatt, ada Plaza Indonesia, ada MGM Boston, ada Agung Podomoro, juga salah satu klien kita, ada juga yang Bunga Sari ke Toyota Tsusho and collaboration between Toyota Tsusho and FKS Group. Habis itu ada yang Dinamiaga Multi Usaha, itu portfolio company dari Garuda Food, Cemco yang portfolio company dari Honda Group, juga sudah ikut serta dengan gerakan kita ini. Di Jawa Timur kebetulan memang listriknya sangat-sangat memadai gitu ya. Listrik sana matahari sana sangat-sangat terik, dan kebetulan memang itu juga lokasi kita yang salah satu yang terbesar di Indonesia. Platinum Keramik itu sekitar 5 sampai 6 megawatt, itu single largest solar rooftop location in Indonesia, and that's one of our clients. Kimberly Clark juga ikutin gerakan ini, dan intinya kalau saya dilihatin dari semua customer kita ini, kenapa mereka mau partisipasi dalam gerakan ini, karena mereka juga bisa dapat saving untuk berikut serta dengan gerakan ini. Dan of course at the end of the day they also get the selain saving, mereka juga bisa turut serta dengan mengurangi emission carbon dioxide, and of course they also in turn for example bukan cuma untuk diri sendiri, kadang-kadang untuk customer mereka juga gitu, kayak misalnya Pendados atau Epalawan Indonesia. Kebetulan mereka ini supplier dari Adidas. Gitu. Mereka sudah ikutan dengan Renewable Energy 100 movement. Mereka pengen komit bahwa mereka akan Renewable Energy 100% by X date. Gitu, kan, ya. Kira-kira seperti itu sih. Mereka dari dia. Terima kasih.
Okay. Thank you Pak Eka. Sangat menarik ya paparannya tadi, di mana kita lihat bahwa penggunaan panel surya di Indonesia itu potensinya masih sangat luas, apalagi kita itu ya tadi diberkati dengan matahari yang konstan gitu sepanjang tahun. Oke, mungkin untuk para audiens, para hadirin yang bergabung bersama kami secara online, jangan lupa untuk menuliskan pertanyaan Anda di kolom chat box. Nanti akan kita bahas ketika panel diskusi. Selanjutnya saya ingin pindah ke speaker kita selanjutnya, panelis selanjutnya yaitu Mas Sano, boleh diberikan paparan mungkin Mas tentang Waste for Change, dan ya kemudian nanti para audiens kita bisa menyaksikan.
Ya, terima kasih. Selamat Hari Bumi, rekan-rekan semua. Saya beberapa saat yang lalu punya beberapa statement bahwasanya kecepatan kerusakan lingkungan per hari ini masih jauh lebih cepat dibandingkan kecepatan solusinya itu. Jadi kita perlu lebih banyak, ya kita ini perlu difotokopi kali ya, perlu diperbanyak supaya lebih cepat solusinya itu. Saya ingin sedikit cerita tentang Waste for Change, siapa kami dan apa yang kami kerjakan dan apa yang kami lakukan. Di Waste for Change ini adalah climate tech startup. Kita memang sebuah startup teknologi yang juga mendapatkan investasi dari East Venture di 2019. Fokus kami adalah Responsible Waste Management Solution. Kami melihat di Indonesia itu sampah ini belum dikelola secara bertanggung jawab. Jadi salah satu diferensiasi kita menawarkan responsibility. Kita tahu benar bahwasanya pengolahan sampah menjadi PR besar di Indonesia. Ya. Nah, jadi ini salah satu visi besar kita, ingin menjadi salah satu yang terdepan dan memimpin di industri pengolahan sampah di Indonesia untuk membuat Indonesia bersih sampah dan zero waste. Saya akan memulai dengan sebuah pertanyaan yang bareng-bareng untuk kita refleksi. Sebenarnya pada tahu nggak sih teman-teman semuanya sampahnya itu berujung kemana itu? Setiap hari kita menghasilkan sampah, ditaruh di depan rumah, tapi pernah nanya nggak, ini sampah ujungnya kemana itu ya? Seperti apa itu? Nah ini kira-kira. Jadi sampahnya kita itu per hari, ini per tahun, data per tahun, itu 64 juta ton tiap tahun teman-teman, atau 175.000 ton per hari. DKI Jakarta itu kira-kira 7.000 sampai 8.000. Sampah di DKI Jakarta per 2 hari itu bisa membangun 1 Candi Borobudur. Bayangin sebanyak itu sampah kita. Setahun kita bisa menghasilkan 185 Candi Borobudur dari sampah semuanya. Nah, karena populasi kita di Indonesia salah satu yang terbanyak di Asia Tenggara, jadi kita menghasilkan sampah juga yang terbanyak di Asia Tenggara ini. Nah, kemudian ini yang terjadi gitu ya, dibakar sembarangan 34,85%, diangkut sekitar 38,59% gitu ya. Kemudian dikirim ke TPS 15,26%, dikubur sembarangan ya, biasanya ada yang dikubur sembarangan, dibuang sembarangan gitu ya, kemudian masuk ke sungai, masuk ke saluran air. Ini masih menjadi masalah yang besar gitu ya. Ini data dari Bappenas 2019. Nah, jadi masalah-masalah tersebut itu terjadi karena sebenarnya kondisi pelaku pengelolaan sampah itu masih sangat memprihatinkan. Kita itu belum betul-betul berinvestasi secara serius dan secara benar terkait bagaimana sanitasi yang baik khususnya persampahan. Gitu ya. Jadi ini istilahnya karena kita belum hadir dengan benar itu seperti rimba, nggak ada aturan mainnya gitu. Semuanya berantakan mekanismenya. Teman-teman bisa lihat TPA-nya seperti itu gitu ya, numpuk bisa sampai 30 meter, 40 meter tinggi dan sangat rentan longsor. Dan itu sudah kejadian tahun 2005, 21 Februari itu TPA di Lui Gajah longsor, meninggal 143 orang terkubur oleh sampah, 2 desa hilang. Jadi ini bukan hanya kerugian ekonomi, tapi sampai kerugian jiwa gitu ya. Kita membuat saudara kita bisa sampai meninggal. Dan 80% sampah yang masuk ke laut itu masalah dari darat sebenarnya. Nah, jadi kita harus melakukan perubahan. Ini saya mengajak di Hari Bumi ini gitu ya, now or never nih, sebenarnya 10 tahun ke depan kita harus bergerak cukup masif. Dari pola-pola yang linear ekonomi gitu, kita mengambil barang dari alam, kita produksi, kita konsumsi, terus kita buang, numpuk di landfill. Kita ubah paradigma kita menuju circular economy. Kita upayakan material ini selama mungkin kita manfaatkan dan kita optimalisasi sehingga tidak ada sampah yang dibuang ke TPA atau ke lingkungan. Nah, ini sudah sangat selaras, pemerintah kita sudah betul-betul cukup visioner dan proaktif, menargetkan target yang sangat ambisius. Di tahun 2025 kita mengelola sampah 100%. 30% kita kurangi dan 70% itu kita tangani, termasuk pengurangan sampah ke laut sebanyak 70% di tahun 2025. Nah, jadi ini yang kami lakukan, responsible waste management ini. Jadi kita yang pertama adalah mengedukasi teman-teman, klien-klien kita, customer kita untuk memilah sampah di sumber. Simple banget, 3 gitu ya, organik, anorganik yang bisa didaur ulang, dan residu. Gitu. Itu minimal 3 itu. Kemudian kita angkut dalam kondisi yang bertanggung jawab, tidak akan dicampur lagi, pakai mekanisme color bag, jadi kantongnya berwarna-warni, sehingga kita bisa menentukan jenis-jenis sampahnya. Lalu kita bawa ke tempat fasilitas kita untuk sorting. Kita sortir lebih detail, namanya material recovery facility. Atau kita sebut rumah pemulihan material. Kita sortir berbasis jenis, untuk kemudian kita kirim menjadi material. Gitu. Jadi sebenarnya yang kita konsumsi itu kan material, bahan baku gitu ya. Pada saat kita konsumsi kalau dicampur dia jadi sampah. Tapi pada saat dia disortir dia jadi material. Organik bisa dimanfaatkan jadi kompos, jadi protein melalui black soldier flies. Kertas balik lagi menjadi kardus, kertas gitu ya. Gelas, metal, plastik juga sama gitu, bisa dimanfaatkan. Residu seperti popok bayi, pembalut wanita, saset-saset yang nggak bisa diapa-apain, ini kita bisa jadikan energi dengan RDF teknologi. Nah, kita punya 4 jasa gitu ya, jasa consult, kita banyak bekerja sama dengan banyak pihak dari World Bank, GIZ, dan pemerintah gitu ya, untuk membuat yang namanya policy brief, membuat namanya master plan, membuat visibility study dan lain-lain untuk proyek-proyek persampahan. Kita juga punya program-program community based implementation gitu ya, campaign, dan kita punya jasa pengangkutan sampah. Jadi buat rekan-rekan yang punya gedung perkantoran, punya hotel, punya kafe, punya perumahan gitu ya, itu sampahnya bisa kita kelola secara bertanggung jawab. Nah, Create itu adalah fasilitas untuk kami memanfaatkan sampah ini untuk dikelola dengan baik, dan kita juga memiliki mekanisme waste credit. Mirip konsepnya dengan carbon credit, mirip sekali. Jadi kita mengajak stakeholder yang ingin mempertanggungjawabkan jejak sampahnya itu. Kalau carbon credit jejak karbon, kalau waste credit itu jejak sampahnya itu. Untuk kemudian dipertanggungjawabkan per kilogram, mereka akan ikut memberikan insentif atau membiayai proses pengolahan sampah. Nah, ini jasa-jasa kita, consult services gitu ya, melakukan banyak sekali jasa riset dan lain-lain. Ini campaign services, melakukan edukasi. Ini collect services, kita mengangkut sampah di berbagai titik. Kita udah ada di 20 kota di Indonesia. Ini create services untuk memanfaatkan sampah ini menjadi material yang bermanfaat. Nah, karena kita berbasis teknologi, semua proses kita, value change-nya kita itu dimonitor dengan tools teknologi. Karena ini kita mau mengharvest datanya, kita mau mengambil datanya. Berapa banyak sih sampahnya? Komposisinya terdiri dari apa saja. Kemudian kita matchmaking dengan off-taker atau pihak-pihak yang membutuhkan material-material tersebut gitu. Jadi ini data driven, dan dari data ini pun kita sebenarnya bisa membuat traceability untuk waste credit tadi. Jadi ini sekarang menjadi sebuah kebutuhan baru untuk banyak stakeholder yang ingin melakukan offset terhadap jejak sampahnya tadi. Jadi setiap proses mulai dari collection, material recovery, sampai ke proses kita mengirim sampah-sampah itu ke pabrik-pabrik, semuanya kita monitor, kita cek datanya, kita review semuanya sehingga kita muncul dashboardnya untuk kemudian kita bisa melakukan evaluasi setiap tahapan. Jadi kita terus mendorong tingkat operasional yang lebih efektif dan lebih efisien. Mulai dari rutenya, mekanisme prosesnya, dan lain-lain kita bisa melakukan evaluasi dengan adanya data. Nah ini contoh kendaraan-kendaraan kita untuk pengangkutan sampah. Kita memiliki dua metode bermitra maupun metode our own fleet, kendaraan kita sendiri. Dan juga sama, RPM-nya, rumah pemulihan materialnya bisa menggunakan kita sendiri atau kita juga bermitra. Kita mengundang teman-teman yang punya lahan di berbagai daerah untuk melakukan joint operation atau joint venture supaya kita bisa mengelola sampah di kawasan tersebut dengan sustainable dan juga profitable. Ini achievement kita, saat ini ada sekitar 2.000-an klien, kita udah mendivert sampah 52% nggak masuk ke TPA, udah hampir 9 juta kilo sampah kita kelola, dan hampir setengah juta orang kita edukasi dan kita ajak dalam gerakan pengolahan sampah ini, dan hampir ada 300-an project yang kita kelola di seluruh Indonesia. Ini beberapa respected klien kita, mereka adalah pihak-pihak yang percaya kepada kami untuk membantu mereka betul-betul menjadi compliance, menjadi responsible, dan juga sustainable. Setiap klien kami akan mendapatkan report. Reportnya terdiri dari berapa banyak sampah yang mereka hasilkan, komposisinya apa saja, dan sudah diapakan sampahnya, dan memiliki penurunan karbon berapa banyak gitu ya, berapa ton karbon per tahun yang mereka bisa turunkan dari proses pengolahan sampah yang responsible ini. Jadi laporan dari kami bisa menjadi bagian dari sustainability report tiap perusahaan-perusahaan ini. Kira-kira begitu, di Hari Bumi ini saya sekali lagi ingin mengajak teman-teman, mari kita bijak kelola sampah, kalau tidak sekarang kapan lagi. Terima kasih.
Thank you Mas Bijaksana, atau saya panggil Mas Sano boleh ya. Terima kasih Mas Sano. Ya mungkin kita tadi udah disebutkan, sampah itu bagian dari kehidupan kita semua. Jadi mungkin setelah dengan presentasi tadi, minimal kita mikir, abis ini kemana? Dan kita bisa memilah dengan baik sampah-sampah kita. Oke, dan kemudian waste managementnya biar waste for change yang melakukannya. Okay, now we go for the next panel. Tadi sebenarnya kita udah ngomong di backstage bahwa Jeffrey actually can speak bahasa juga, tapi maybe little I can gitu kali ya. Mungkin maksudnya pasti, tapi untuk nanti mungkin menjawab pakai bahasa Inggris boleh gitu ya. Okay, Jeffrey, maybe you can give us some insights about forest carbon and yeah, your project of course, and yeah, how the efforts, everything. I think we would like to learn more from you. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It's great to be on this panel with two other environmental entrepreneurs that are doing great work for Indonesia, but also the world. Forest Carbon is a company that restores and protects tropical forests in Indonesia, but also across Southeast Asia. And I start off the presentation with a photo of our flagship Sumatra Meringue peatland project that we're implementing with our partner Global Alam Lestari. That's restoring 23,000 hectares of degraded peatland forest in South Sumatra. But before I go into more information about our company, I want to give an overview of this emerging market for environmental services, and specifically carbon credits. Over the past couple of years, we've seen a record number of companies make net zero commitments. This is essentially a commitment for carbon neutrality from their operations. Culminating with the climate negotiations in Glasgow, Scotland last year, almost all of the Fortune 500 companies in the world now have net zero commitments, which is representing a massive portion of the world's economy, which is creating sustained demand for this new emerging market, with analysts predicting that it could hit $100 billion annually in the coming years. Companies aren't just making commitments, they're acting on them. And we can see from this slide that companies within the telecom, technology, energy, and also consumer goods sectors are now starting to buy hundreds of millions of carbon credits annually. And this is creating sustained demand for the market, but also right now is outpacing the supply of projects that can produce these carbon credits. Indonesia is a rainforest country and is considered one of the lungs of the world. And as a result, it has an enormous amount of potential to participate in this emerging environmental service market. One, because it's home to some of the world's largest tropical peatlands and also mangrove forests, which store some of the most amounts of carbon compared to any other ecosystem. And what we've seen over the past 10 years is that Indonesia has already been participating in these carbon markets. And there's a strong private sector participation. Here you can see that going back to 2010, there have been renewable energy projects, but also large-scale forest conservation and restoration projects that have been generating carbon credits over the past decade. This is not a new sector, but it's one that's been maturing slowly in the country and is poised to expand greatly in the coming years. And you can see that these projects are located across the country in Sumatra, all the way up in Aceh. We also have, there's projects in Java, Kalimantan, and Sulawesi. And the number of these projects is set to expand in the coming years as more and more projects come online. And so far, Indonesia has been producing over 15 million carbon credits per year for the voluntary markets. And I expect this number to double in size very shortly. Specifically for nature-based solutions, Indonesia was an early mover with projects certified going back all the way to 2016 and representing the majority of carbon credits produced in Southeast Asia. Now other countries in Southeast Asia are also producing, like Cambodia, but with Indonesia's vast forest estate, this number is set to expand as well, with Brazil being the largest producer of carbon credits from nature-based solutions in the world right now. But Indonesia has a chance to become the global leader. And now I want to tell you a little bit about my company, Forest Carbon. We've been working in Indonesia since 2010, protecting threatened tropical forests. And we believe that the work we're doing is helping reduce climate risk by protecting biodiversity, stopping deforestation, ensuring that watersheds are protected, and also, more importantly, investing in rural local communities, making them more climate resilient. And we believe in a market-based approach to conservation, that we can leverage markets and create sustainable financing mechanisms that will help protect Indonesia's natural capital for decades into the future. We have a proven track record of success, having supported 4 projects to be launched, with 3 of them already certified and producing millions of carbon credits per year. We have a plan to launch new projects in 2022, covering a total of 110,000 hectares here in Indonesia, protecting habitats with endangered species like tigers and orangutans. And our Sumatra Meringue peatland project has already shown that it can be a viable business, creating returns not only for investors and our project partners, but also the Indonesian government and local communities. And we've done that through our success in contracting over $31 million in sales to customers around the world. And so here you can see a slide of some of our customers who buy carbon credits, and they represent some of the biggest brands in the world, such as AXA, Microsoft, Chanel, L'Oreal. And these companies are interested in buying credits not just from any place in the world, but Indonesia is important to them in the sense that they source raw products for their supply chains. And also Indonesia represents a very important downstream market for their products. And so new projects that are going to come online will be able to tap into this potential and really expand the work that we're doing. But in order to produce carbon credits, it takes significant amount of capital, action on the ground, in order for it to become a reality. So specifically looking at nature-based solution projects, so that's large-scale forest restoration and conservation projects. We can see how the Sumatra Meringue peatland project, which covers 30,000 hectares, is a habitat for endangered species. It's able to succeed because of a full-time staff located at the project site that's working on restoration, fire prevention, biodiversity monitoring, and very importantly, community development. Here you can see a slide of the 2019 fire season, which affected the entire region, and the orange and yellow dots represent where fires took place. Our project, located in the center of the slide, demarcated by the red boundary, we were able to prevent fire from happening, showing that we have a viable method of fire prevention. And we do this by having full-time staff trained in fire prevention, working 24 hours a day. We leverage technology such as infrared cameras to monitor for smoke. And we also utilize drones and satellites to detect and investigate hotspots. We also restore the hydrology of our peatland area. Almost all of the peatlands in Indonesia have been drained through the construction of small-scale canals, which were used to extract timber. And so our job has been to build dams as a way to bring the water level back up. And we've done that now, and we've been able to successfully bring the water levels back to pre-degradation levels, which essentially reduces all the risk of fire. We also work to reforest the area through assisted natural regeneration. We have nurseries. Our teams are constantly collecting new seedlings and planting these in areas that need them most. And you can see when we started the project in 2016, only 1% of our project area was forest. And when you look at that number now, at the end of 2021, we now have closed canopy forests covering 25% of the project area. Again, showing we have a proven model of forest restoration that can be scaled and replicated in other parts of Indonesia. We use technology to collect data from our site, sensors, to understand where the water table levels are. This helps us analyze fire risk, but also to show our investors and our buyers of carbon credits how successful we are in restoring this natural ecosystem. We also pull all of our environmental and management data into an online project dashboard, which allows us to effectively manage the project from our offices in Jakarta in collaboration with our field staff. We monitor for biodiversity. We have camera traps located throughout our project site, and this allows our team of experts to estimate and understand our biodiversity populations. And last but not least, one of the most important things we do is invest in our local communities. Without their participation and support, we wouldn't be able to achieve the success that we have. And we've done that through creating local jobs and major investments in education and healthcare systems. And so with that, I'd like to end it, and thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So we have seen kita sudah melihat 3 paparan tadi dari ketiga startup ini, dari Surya, dari Waste for Change, dan juga dari Forest Carbon. Sekali lagi untuk para audiens sekalian, apabila Anda memiliki pertanyaan, silahkan tanyakan sekarang juga di chat box, dan our team akan mengkurasi 3 pertanyaan terbaik untuk ditanyakan. Tapi mungkin sebelum kita beralih ke pertanyaan dari audiens, mungkin pertanyaan dari saya dulu, boleh? Oke, pertanyaannya untuk ketiga tamu kita hari ini sih. Jadi untuk Pak Eka, Mas Sano, dan juga Jeffrey ya. Mungkin kita kan udah ngeliat ya, ada perubahan behaviors dari sisi consumers, dari sisi perorangan gitu ya, individual, that they already more aware with the greener earth and sustainability and everything. Juga kita sudah mendengar tadi ada bold commitments dan juga efforts dari government untuk mendukung tentunya sustainability, dan juga para business leaders, investors, entrepreneurs semuanya juga right now doing this green solutions. Pertanyaannya adalah what could be the challenge now? I mean, what will be the challenge like for now and then for the next 5 years dengan semua dukungan yang mungkin belum ada, tapi maksudnya mungkin ya semakin konkret dari yang sebelumnya. Apa yang kira-kira what will be the challenge now and for the next 5 years? Mungkin dari Mas Eka dulu boleh?
So I think ya seperti tadi Mbak bilang gitu kan ya, memang udah mulai banyak waking up ini ya. Dan memang kalau saya kan recalling Mbak Jati gitu ya, selama 3 tahun terakhir ini, waktu di awal-awal memang judulnya setengah mati sih. Setiap kali kita mau coba jualan, kamu harus save the earth. Kenapa? Itu kamu butuh duit gitu kan. Itu mereka sering banget gitu kan. Sekarang I can see that there is more and more orang-orang yang aware. Cuman yang kita lihat adalah sebenarnya mereka biarpun aware, mereka kayaknya masih belum banyak yang tahu gimana caranya mereka mengurangi impact carbon dioxide-nya, mereka mengurangi impact waste-nya gitu, kemudian how do they even offset the own carbon ini kan mereka banyak yang lost. I think mungkin edukasi itu yang paling utama.
Berarti Mas challenge-nya masih educating-nya ya, masih di tahap edukasinya lagi supaya nggak sampai di awareness aja gitu. Oke. Mas Ano kayaknya udah ready, udah begini-begini. Mungkin ya, Mas Ano silakan.
Tadi ya statement saya, kecepatan kerusakan lingkungan per hari ini masih jauh lebih cepat dibandingkan kecepatan solusinya. So, kita harus mengkampanyekan speed up the solution. We need to speed up the solution. UNEP said that this next 10 years is very critical year, a very critical decade to restore our environmental status. Kalau kita kelewat di 10 tahun ke depan, lingkungan akan masuk ke fase yang tidak bisa diperbaiki kembali. Irreversible condition. So it's pretty much
cepat banget.
Iya, ini nggak boleh kelewat itu. So speed up the solution. For me, solution is already there. Teknologi ada, solusi ada, inovasi ada gitu ya. Jadi yang paling penting saya ada 2 sih. Tentu kesadaran publik atau awareness publik itu penting. Nah, salah satu untuk membuat awareness publik dan kesadaran publik itu tidak hanya bisa dari sebuah sosialisasi, edukasi, dan campaign. Tetapi the most critical one is law enforcement. Karena kita nggak bisa menunggu orang akan aware dan sadar bahwasanya kita itu butuh air, butuh energi, butuh udara, dan segala macam. Kadang-kadang we are take it for granted aja gitu. Jadi memang harus di-push. Contohnya quite happy dengan adanya carbon tax. Ya paksa aja. Memang realitanya semua orang harus bertanggung jawab kok gitu. Jadi menurut saya itu gap yang harus kita bantu supaya masyarakat itu betul-betul menjalani yang benar. Gitu ya. Karena mereka nggak sadar. Emang kita pakai helm karena sayang kepala? Bukan. Karena malas ditilang polisi. Jadi sama menurut saya kita harus membantu policy brief kepada pemerintah dan membantu supaya adanya law enforcement yang benar. Yang kedua adalah financing gap. Climate financing gap. Untuk kita bertransisi menuju yang lebih baik, we need quite a huge amount of financing. Baik itu di energi, baik itu di restorasi hutan, baik itu di waste management. Gitu. Jadi kita harus mulai shifting perputaran uang, seperti tadi disampaikan oleh teman-teman Saratoga. Jadi udah conventional business itu udah heavily invested. Nah, bagaimana kemudian yang pro kepada isu lingkungan and solving a climate crisis itu harus diberikan lebih besar porsi untuk investmentnya. Nah, menurut saya challenge-nya ke depan ini adalah bagaimana kita bersama-sama membantu semua stakeholder, ekosistemnya, pemerintah. 1, enforce the law. 2 adalah how to create innovative financing. Itu menurut saya salah satu yang ingin saya sampaikan.
Oke, terima kasih Mas Ano. Pokoknya tadi beyond public awareness ada law enforcement yang harus ditegakkan untuk supaya kita bisa menjaga bumi lebih baik dan juga ya shifting financing ya untuk mendukung perusahaan-perusahaan yang tentunya go green gitu. Oke, Mas Jeffrey. Jeffrey, so yeah, what's your thought about this? What could be the challenge now?
Sure. I think we heard, the solutions are already there. For nature-based solutions, Indonesia has been a leader in the development of these projects, for over 10 years. But I think, the industry could face some policy change issues. So I think, awareness, working with government counterparts, really showing the benefits that these projects can bring to local economies, ecotourism potential, I think is the way to get all the stakeholders on board to make sure that this sector really grows in the future.
Okay, thank you so much. We have received one question actually, mungkin untuk tim multimedia boleh dibantu ditayangkan tadi di screen. Tadi kita menerima pertanyaan untuk Pak Eka. Oke, untuk Pak Eka dari Siti Siwi Wulandari. Pemanfaatan solar energi menjanjikan, tapi apakah dapat dipakai oleh masyarakat umum mengingat baterai cukup mahal sehingga baru bisa digunakan oleh perusahaan atau golongan yang mampu? Silakan Pak Eka.
Ini mungkin meng-highlight bahwa kepentingan dari edukasi itu gitu ya. Karena memang kalau misalnya kita lihat sejarahnya solar panel itu gitu. Memang benar solar panel itu sempat satu waktu mahal banget gitu kan. Dan juga butuh baterai gitu kan. Cuman sudah berpuluh-puluh tahun sudah diiterasi gitu kan, dan akhirnya mereka come up with a solution sebenarnya. Dan solution ini sebenarnya mulai dicetuskan di sekitar 2007 itu untuk mereka bikin solar panel semurah-murah mungkin, dan mereka akan kita akan bergerak di dua fase gitu kan ya. Fase pertama adalah apa yang kita sebut dengan on-grid parity, yaitu solar system tanpa baterai itu harus bisa lebih murah daripada harga listrik secara umum gitu kan. Dan juga fase kedua adalah dengan baterai gitu kan. Nah, mungkin yang sekarang lagi ramai dibicarakan di publik kan baterai, mobil listrik segala macam gitu kan ya. Itu definitely akan datang. Cuman memang jujurnya memang belum sampai di saat waktunya gitu ya. Tetapi dari segi teknologi sudah mulai masuk. Nah, untuk balik ke pertanyaan ini gitu kan. Kenapa apakah ini bisa dipakai dengan masyarakat umum? Definitely udah mulai bisa. Kita waktu dimulai di 2018 itu kita memang kebanyakan mulai di perusahaan-perusahaan. Saya sendiri personally udah mulai pakai di rumah saya, dan sebenarnya kalau dilihatin on-grid parity ini di rumah-rumah itu balik modalnya kita juga cukup pendek gitu kan ya. Sehingga bisa dipakai untuk ini. Memang yang kurang sekarang ini adalah financing untuk masyarakat umum. Nah, itu yang kedepannya mungkin tadi Mas Heno bilang innovative financing gimana caranya, itu juga salah satu yang bidang yang kita lagi coba solusikan. Tapi memang kita mau coba arahnya sekarang mulai dari perusahaan-perusahaan dulu untuk memberikan give this blanket understanding lah bahwa ini bukan cuman bukan cuman science fiction gitu ya, bahwa ini tuh real gitu kan, dan ini di pabrik-pabrik bisa dipakai apalagi di rumah gitu kan. Nah, mungkin tahap berikutnya mungkin yang tadi seperti Mas Heno bilang gitu kan. Memang benar kita akhir-akhirnya harus ke arah law enforcement. Cuman yang saya percaya itu kita di Indonesia itu kan karena sangat demokrasi gitu ya. Pemerintah itu kalau mau bikin decision pasti akan liatin masyarakat gitu kan. Nah, jadi menurut saya kita sebagai masyarakat juga punya suatu role gitu untuk memberitahukan, memberi isyarat-isyarat, memberi signal-signal kepada pemerintah ini bahwa kita itu mau dan kita itu peduli sama clean energy, kita itu peduli sama waste management, kita itu peduli untuk konservasi lingkungan gitu. Kalau misalnya nggak mulai dari kita, dan ya ibaratnya pemerintah bakal ya udah kenapa harus saya enforce, masyarakat nggak minta kok gitu kan. Mereka kan yang penting di voting aja gitu kan. Itu yang mungkin message saya kepada Hari Bumi ini untuk tolonglah bantu, karena bumi ini kan milik kita bersama. There is no planet B gitu ya. Jadi dari masyarakat itu tolong dibantu untuk memberikan isyarat-isyarat ini, karena kalau tidak pemerintah tidak akan bergerak.
Oke. Bumi milik bersama harus kita jaga bersama-sama juga ya. Oke, sebenarnya mungkin akan ada banyak sekali topik yang bisa dibahas, tapi tadi kita sudah mendengar banyak paparan dari masing-masing perusahaan ini, masing-masing leaders ini, dan I think it's already enough gitu apa yang mereka jelaskan. Sudah cukup jelas maksudnya, sudah cukup jelas bahwa ya their efforts and actions in the ground apa aja yang mereka lakukan. Tadi kita juga sudah ada sempat Q&A sedikit, tapi berhubung waktu memang terbatas, kita juga harus menyelesaikan sesi Q&A ini. Tapi sebelum itu, mungkin saya ingin menanyakan closing statement dari masing-masing panelis hari ini. Saya mungkin mau mulai dari Mas Hano dulu ya, Mas Hano mungkin bisa memberikan closing statement, kemudian Jeffrey dan juga Pak Eka. Terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih. Saya pikir ini ya Hari Bumi bukan sebenarnya menjadi peduli terhadap bumi, menjadi peduli terhadap lingkungan bukan cuma setahun sekali gitu ya. Jadi ini harus menjadi everyday act, everyday daily life gitu. Dan saya sedikit mendorong pihak-pihak yang memiliki leadership gitu ya, power gitu, itu harus mengarahkan ke arah yang benar. Karena kepala belok kanan, kaki ikut gitu. Artinya pihak-pihak yang memang punya decision maker, punya power dan lain-lain itu perlu untuk mendorong ke arah yang lebih baik dan lebih tepat. Dan hari ini sudah dibuktikan pada saat ada Saratoga atau East Venture memilih berinvestasi kepada kami, dampaknya itu berlipat ganda. Dampak ekonomi, dampak sosial gitu ya, lapangan kerja, kemudian dampak lingkungan khususnya. Itu sangat nyata sekali gitu. Jadi artinya investment ini multiplikasi impact-nya gede banget. Jadi saya harap market driven, masyarakat juga lebih tergerak untuk memilih produk-produk dan jasa-jasa yang lebih ramah lingkungan. Dan kemudian untuk government juga mendorong policy driven, mendorong kebijakan-kebijakan yang tepat supaya ekosistemnya itu kondusif gitu ya. Dalam konteks kita membangun green business atau climate tech solution di Indonesia. Selamat Hari Bumi, mari kita mengarah ke yang lebih baik.
Terima kasih Mas Sano. Jeffrey.
Sure. I mean, I think after seeing the presentations and hearing some of the earlier speeches, Indonesia really is at an inflection point where the major investors and also groups that are really driving change on the environment are now connecting, and investors are now making large-scale investments into these organizations. And I think we're going to see a lot of change happen over the next 5 years, and it's an exciting place to be. So, happy Earth Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Pak Eka, silakan closing statement.
Ya, terima kasih. Mungkin di Earth Day ini saya mau mengucapkan bahwa mungkin kita sebenarnya kan berfokus kepada menyelamatkan bumi, dan mungkin banyak yang bertanya gitu kan, kenapa kita harus menyelamatkan bumi gitu. Mungkin saya perlu kasih tahu satu statement lagi gitu ya, bahwa coba dipikirkan bahwa kita tuh menyelamatkan bumi sebenarnya bukan untuk cuma menyelamatkan bumi, cuma untuk menyelamatkan ras kita, ras manusia ini sendiri. Karena kalau saya pernah dilihatin nih, saya kemarin baru nonton dokumentari gitu ya, bahwa sebenarnya life after Chernobyl, everything comes back to normal, but only without human. Itu yang harus kita pikirkan gitu kan. Karena bumi ini sudah bertahan hidup millions of years. Sudah ada kepunahan, 5 kepunahan yang masalah gitu kan, dinosaurus dan kawan-kawan gitu kan. Tapi apa yang akan stop kita sebagai ras manusia ini yang sudah hidup hanya cuma 5.000 tahun di bumi kita ini yang miliaran tahun gitu kan ya. Apa yang akan menyetop kepunahan kita ini? Hanya kita sendiri yang bisa sekarang ini di tangan kita gitu. Makanya di Hari Bumi ini yang mau saya ajakkan kawan-kawan, ayolah kita selamatkan ras kita sendiri, ras manusia ini di hari ini.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Oke, para hadirin sekalian, maka dengan berakhirnya closing statement dari para panelis kita hari ini, tiba juga kita di ujung pengacara. Once again, thank you very much untuk Pak Eka, Pak Sano, dan Mr. Chatelier. Saya juga ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Pahala Mansuri, Pak Devin Wiryawan, Ibu Afina Sugiarto, dan segenap tim Saratoga dan East Ventures. Terima kasih juga kepada rekan-rekan media, partners, dan juga peserta yang sudah hadir. Saya tutup acara hari ini. Mari bersama-sama kita menjaga kelestarian bumi melalui penggunaan energi terbarukan, mengelola sampah dengan bijak, dan menjaga kelestarian keanekaragaman hayati. Sampai bertemu di acara Earth Day event selanjutnya. Selamat siang, selamat Hari Bumi.